What is up, drone community? This is Carlos Valdez, and today I wanted to make a really quick video to give you guys my initial thoughts on the new drone that I just purchased recently, which is this guy right here, the DJI Flip. So I've had this drone for a few days now, and I've been flying it non-stop, and I've gathered enough information to kind of give you guys what my thoughts are. There's a ton of videos on the internet, on YouTube, about this drone. It kind of got released and everyone just started talking about it, and there's good and bad, and this won't be one of those videos where I go through all the features, not that kind of review. I just want to give you guys my initial thoughts, what's good about it, what I think is good about it, what is bad about it, what I think is bad about it, and obviously who is the drone for? Who's this drone for? Who should buy it? Who should not consider it? So I'm going to get right into it. So first and foremost, I'm speaking about this as a recreational flyer. So I'm just going to give you my honest opinion as a person who is flying for fun, recreationally, as far as the DJI Flip and where it sits in DJI's lineup, and again, who should consider it. So what's good about this drone? Okay, so first and foremost, the camera. Hands down, the camera. This is the same camera that's in the Mini 3, the Mini 3 Pro, and the Mini 4 Pro. So it's the 1/1/3 sensor. It's very, very capable, extremely crisp image quality, very decent cinematic footage. I mean, this is as good as it gets right now as far as cameras. I mean, DJI has continued to use that same sensor in some of their bigger high-end drones. The Air 3 had this sensor. The Air 3S has this sensor. So they continue to use it. You know it's good. It's tested and true, and the camera is great on it. What else? Flight controls. This drone, just like most of the other nicer, higher-end DJI drones, gives you the option to, even the Neo at a low-end drone, to really tweak the flight controls as far as how you want the drone to fly. So if you go into your flight controls, something that's not talked about a whole lot is the gain and expo settings that you're able to tweak on most of the DJI drones. And out of the box, this drone is very, very snappy. So I went in there and I tweaked some stuff around, which the gain and expo settings let you tweak the way the drone turns, the up and down, and then the forward and movement on it. So I got it dialed into what I like to do or how I like to fly based on what I own with some of my other drones. And I just like the fact that they give you that. They didn't leave that out. That's very typical of DJI to have that in there. So I was glad to see that. The other thing is speed. This drone out of the box is pretty snappy. It's pretty quick. I'll talk about wind a little bit later, but on a calm day with virtually no wind, this drone is pretty quick. And one thing that I discovered in the gain and expo settings is that it does let you, in sport mode, it's not dialed all the way up. So when you go into the gain and expo settings under sport mode, the maximum horizontal speed is dialed back, and you can go all the way up to 35 miles per hour on this drone. It lets you set it that high. Now, I don't think this drone's capable of really going that fast, because any kind of wind is going to slow it down due to the propeller setup. These ducted or encased propellers don't fly as good as the open propellers like on the Mini 4 Pro or most of the other DJI, really all of the other DJI drones other than the FPV drones. So, speed, it's pretty fast in my opinion. Let's see other things. The options for flying it. You can fly this drone by itself like you can the Neo. It's got a bunch of flight modes, obviously. You can fly it with the mobile app. You can fly it with the controllers, the various controllers that are compatible. So that's another good thing. Another thing that was impressive is the mobile app on this one. Unlike the Neo, you have a lot more flexibility with it. So the mobile app, for the Flip, it lets you shoot in 4K 60, 4K 30. You can shoot in D-Log M. For your color grading, for those of us who want to color grade our footage, you can shoot in that really flat color profile. You can, for stills, you can go to 48 megapixel. It lets you shoot in JPEG and RAW. It also has a mode like many of the other DJI drones where you can snap a picture and it'll produce a JPEG and a RAW image. So I think that that's really, really cool that you can change to those options or change those options around in the mobile app now. because you weren't really able to do that on the Neo. Now it doesn't let you change everything. You can't mess with your exposure settings or your shutter speed. So hopefully in a future software update that will be made available to us. But the mobile app, I think, is pretty impressive what you can do. A little bit higher step up from what the Neo lets you do. Of course the Neo doesn't have some of these features, but I just think that the mobile app has a little bit more flexibility, so that's a good. Also, the mobile app, you can actually turn the obstacle avoidance off. So the Flip has a infrared TOF sensor. Some people, it's not LiDAR, obviously, that's been discussed, but the infrared obstacle avoidance sensor, you can actually turn that off. And if you're a person like me, like I never fly with obstacle avoidance on at all. It's not something that I've ever needed or used just because of the flying that I do. I may turn it on if I'm flying through a really tight area just for peace of mind. But I like that you can turn it off if I'm flying with the mobile app. You can turn it off obviously with flying with a remote, but it's nice to be able to turn it off because if you're flying through a really tight space, this is just going to break. It doesn't have some of the other obstacle avoidance options. So this is just going to stop if it detects an obstacle. Or if you're flying through a tight space, if it detects a corner, it might just jitter and kind of get confused for a second and then go. So I like that you can turn the obstacle avoidance off. That's how I like to fly. So that's, for me, is a good. You can do that both in the mobile app as well as when flying with a remote. And then other things that I think are good. I think it's got pretty decent wind resistance. Now, this is not going to fly as good as the Mini 4 Pro or the Mini 3 Pro or the Mini 3 in the wind. It's not going to do that, but it is going to fly better than the Neo in the wind. So I think 20 miles an hour is its limit. If you're flying in something like 10 to 20 miles an hour winds, or obviously lower, this is going to do pretty well. I flew this in 12 mile an hour winds with 19 mile an hour gusts, and I had no problem. I mean, I was up 350 feet and I didn't even get a strong wind warning. Now, I also flew this in 28 mile an hour winds. I flew this today in 28 mile an hour winds, and I still didn't get a strong wind warning. So that's good, but I mean, it was really flying like this. It was struggling. So I think anything larger, or faster, higher than 20 miles an hour, that's really its limit. But it does pretty good up to 20 miles an hour. I don't feel like it struggled or anything. And let's say the last thing is going to be, or a couple other things, works great in the dark. Unlike the Neo, which is absolutely horrible in the dark. I'm not sure if it's the smaller camera sensor. The Flip does appear to have the same sensors on the bottom as the Neo, but this does incredibly or significantly better in low light conditions. I'm not sure if it's the obstacle avoidance sensor, but even with the obstacle avoidance sensor off, I flew this a little bit at night, and it definitely does really, really well in low light conditions when you compare it to something like the Neo, which is horrible. So that was a positive to me. I don't do a lot of flying at night, but I thought that was a positive. And then lastly, the last good that I'll say is the price. I think this sits at a really good area for price. You've got your lower end drones, and then you got middle of the road, and then you got your higher end drones. So I'll talk about price a little later in the video. So what's bad? What's the bad on this drone? What don't I like about it? Well, first off, 2 gigs of onboard storage, 2 gigs of onboard memory is like a joke. Like, you really can't use that for anything. You can maybe take a couple of pictures. You can maybe take a really, really, really short video, but it's going to fill up so quick. I don't know what DJI was thinking. I mean, the remote that comes with this, if you get the Fly More combo like I got, you get the RC2 remote, and the remote has 32 gigabytes. So the remote has more space than the drone, and you can't record from the drone directly to the remote. So I don't know what DJI was thinking with only 2 gigs of space. I mean, I guess as opposed to not having any space at all, 2 gigs is something, but I wish it had, 32 gigs, or even the Neo has 22 gigs. So even if they matched what the Neo had, would have been better for me. What else? No return to home option on the mobile app. again, just like the Neo, this is something that I really think DJI needs to address in a future software update. I can tell you, I will hands down, I will not fly with the mobile app because of this. I will not run the risk of sending my drone out and losing Wi-Fi signal with the mobile app, and then just having the drone just hover there and run the risk of not being able to get to it to catch it if it lands. So because of that, I won't fly with the mobile app at all until, hopefully, I'll cross my fingers, DJI fixes that. If DJI implements return to home on the mobile app, I will be much more apt to fly with it. I would actually love that, because I could just bring the drone, and I could just bring, let's say, like my Neo with me if they fixed it on the Neo, and just my phone, and I'd be really, really happy with that option. So that, I think, is a miss. The obstacle avoidance on this could be better. This just has brake, so I'm not sure if it's because it's not a camera like some of the other obstacle avoidance sensors, like on the Mini 4 Pro, Mini 3 Pro, and some of the other higher end drones. But this is just an infrared time of flight sensor. So, this kind of measures light impulses or distances, and that's how it works. But what happens is this just has brake, so if it detects an obstacle, it just stops. It won't go around the obstacle like some of the other drones. So that's called bypass, and I'm not sure if bypass is available, or if the infrared sensor that the Flip has is capable of bypass. But if it is, please DJI release that in a software update, because bypass, if I'm going to use obstacle avoidance at all, I'm definitely going to use bypass. I don't like the brake function, because it can really mess up you can be flying straight and it just detects an obstacle, and it can kind of jitter, just getting confused, and that tends to mess up your footage. So if bypass is at all a capability of that drone, of the Flip, I really wish DJI would look at implementing that. Let's see. It's quieter than the Neo, but it's noisy. It's still noisy. It's not going to be as whiny as the Neo, but because, again, the propeller design, it's going to mean that it's going to make a different pitch, and this one sounds more like, a hornet's nest, if you will. It's not as quiet as the Mini 4 Pro, which is really, really quiet. It's definitely not as loud as the Neo, but it's still noisy. And let's see, and then other things that I think are just nuances. It's bigger than the Neo, so it can't track in tight spaces. The Neo, I feel like I can walk around my house and get through doorways and everything, and it won't hit anything. With the Flip being so much bigger than the Neo, it follows really well, but in tight spaces, it can bump the corners. So something to keep in mind. A couple other things that I'm not a big fan of. The bag. I will say the bag. And this is an issue with any DJI drone that uses, any of the DJI drones that use this style bag. I don't have anything against the bag. What I don't like, though, is, for example, I bought it with the RC2 controller. I don't like that I can't put my controller in the bag without removing the sticks. I want to be able to leave my sticks on and then put it in the bag. When I leave the sticks on, I can't stick it in the bag because the compartment kind of hits the sticks and pushes them up. So it's nice that you can store the sticks in the back here. However, I hate that I have to take them out and screw them in every time I'm going to fly my Flip, which is often. So I wish, that's why most of the time I do away with the DJI bag and I buy like a hard case. But, with this drone being so portable, so small, just like the Neo, I wish I could just take it with me and be able to pull the remote out and have the sticks already on there. Just, just an annoyance for me. And then one other thing that I'll talk about is the drone does come with this little dust cover. And I know that in the documentation in the manual it says just discard it after use. So for those of you who might have a Flip or hear about this, you got the gimbal cover on it, which comes off, and then this is kind of covering the camera. This is kind of just for like transport. I really don't get why DJI did this. I guess they're just trying to be safe, and I guess if I'm putting my drone away for an extended period of time, I will use this. But there's no way that I would put this on and take it off every single time. So I did see that they recommend, or I read that they recommend in the manual, that you just discard this after first use. the gimbal on this, the gimbal cover, I should say, if you look on the bottom, I can kind of stick my hand in here or my finger and see I can move the gimbal around. So having this dust cover on is really not going to stop that. So there's really no need to have it unless you really are trying to, prevent something from getting in the camera lens. And that's the bad, right? So that's the good and that's the bad. So who is this drone for? Let's talk about who is it that this drone is for. So excuse me 1 second, guys. All right, so let's talk about who this drone is for. So first and foremost, if you don't own a drone and you're buying your very first drone, and for your first drone, you want to buy a new drone. So let me be clear there. If you're buying first time drone buyer, you don't own a drone, you're going to buy a brand new drone, or you're going to buy your first drone and you want that drone to be new. In other words, you don't want to purchase refurbished or renewed, as they call it, okay? And I'll talk about refurbished and renewed towards the end of the video, because just some things to think about. So who's this for? If you're in the market for your first drone and you want a brand new drone, you should look at the Flip. If you own a Neo or a Mini 4K or any of the older Mini series, so not the Mini 3 or Mini 3 Pro or Mini 4 Pro, I'll talk about those in a minute or in a few. But if you own a Neo or a Mini 2, a Mini 2 SE, a Mini 2 4K, the Flip is an awesome upgrade. You're going to get the better camera. You're going to get significantly better everything on this drone. So if you own one of those, it's a really nice upgrade to consider. Who else? Vlogger. If you're a vlogger, if you do a lot of narrated videos where you want the drone to track you and follow you and you don't want to have a controller or your phone in your hand, or if you're doing narrated videos, the follow me and the direction track on the Flip is really, really good. It's good on the Neo. It's even better on the Flip in my opinion, because the image quality is better. So if you're someone who needs those autonomous flight functions, the need to not fly with a controller, right now the Neo and the Flip are your options, and obviously the Flip would be the better option of the two in my opinion. And then if you're budget conscious, right? If you're looking for a drone but you don't want to go with something as low end as the Neo, it's very, very low end as far as image quality. It's not bad, but it's on the lower end of the spectrum. But maybe you don't have the money to buy a Mini 4 Pro or something better, something bigger, then you are someone that I would say you're budget conscious. So this sits kind of in the middle, and I'll talk about some drones that are before and after this drone to consider as well. So who is this drone not for? So this drone is not for someone that's looking to fly FPV. The Flip is not capable of FPV at all, and from every bit of research that I've done, it's not going to be capable. So your options for FPV are the Neo and the Avata series, and any other drones that DJI releases. But this is not something that you're going to be able to fly with the goggles and the motion controller or the FPV controller. So not for the FPV person. Also, if we're going to be flying in areas where there's a lot of heavy wind, like if you live near a coast where there's always a lot of wind and it's over 20 miles an hour, this is probably not going to be what you want. You're going to want to go with something bigger. So if you're someone that, again, flies in heavy winds, probably not for you. And then if you own any of the drones that have the same camera, so any of the drones that have the 1/1.3 inch sensor, which would be the Mini 3, the Mini 3 Pro, the Mini 4 Pro, the Air 3, the Air 2S. I'm getting up high in price now, but really if you own the Mini 3, the Mini 3 Pro, or the Mini 4 Pro, which are going to be the closest to the Flip, not worth buying the Flip, because you already have the very main and best thing of the drone is the camera, and you already have that camera. So unfortunately, in my opinion, unless you own one of those, the Mini 3, the Mini 3 Pro, or the Mini 4 Pro, and you really want the autonomous flight functions, the ability to fly the drone without a controller or with the mobile app, then you could consider this. But otherwise, if you own any of those three drones, probably not something that you want to look at. So Now, just want to give you guys some other things to think about. Okay, let's say, well, first off, when you're buying a drone, right? When you're considering purchasing a drone, first of all, do yourself a favor. Buy a drone that is going to have a controller that has a built-in screen. So, for example, I own a Mini 3 Pro as well, which I'll talk about in a little bit. That came with this controller here, which is the DJI RC. The controller that came with the Flip is the RC2, which has the antennas. So this is the original one that came out. The RC2, which now is available with the Flip, has the antennas, but my point is it has a built-in screen. You can get the Flip with the controller, the RCN3, with no screen, where you hook your phone up to it. But I think in today's day and age, you should just definitely get a controller that has a screen. It's less of a hassle to have to connect your phone all the time. It's going to have, range is not the question here. It's just convenience. And that's just, for me, do yourself a favor. If you can get a drone that has the built-in controller, then do that. And also fly more. Fly more combo is the way to go on any drone that you purchase, in my opinion. You're going to get the extra batteries, usually a carrying bag, usually a hub to be able to charge the batteries all at once, or at least together and then charge in sequence, and then obviously a few more accessories with it. So fly more combo. If you can splurge for the version of the drone that has the built-in screen on the controller, do that. And then obviously, if you're considering a drone, so let's talk where this sits, right? If you're considering a drone, and let's first talk about drones that are under 250 grams. So you are that person that you don't want to register your drone with the FAA. You want to not have to register it. You don't want a really heavy drone. You want maybe a quieter drone, something small that's compact that you can carry around that won't be too heavy. Or maybe you live in a country where there's additional restrictions and you got to be under that 250 gram limit because of other reasons, for licensing or anything that you might have to do to fly it. So under 250 grams, your options right now really are, they start at the Neo, and I'm just talking DJI here, guys. So forget other brands for a second, just DJI. You start at the Neo. Then you have, after the Neo, as far as what's available really right now, you have the Neo and you have the Mini 4K. You can buy an older Mini 2 or a Mini 2 SE. You can buy those renewed or refurbished. You can buy them from DJI renewed or refurbished, and they're also a great value. That's the lower end of the spectrum. And I'll stop there because I'll say the Neo, the Mini 2, the Mini 2 SE, the Mini 4K, all of those drones have a half-inch sensor. And that is there's going to be a significant difference between that half-inch sensor and the 1/1/3 inch sensor that all the other drones that I'm going to talk about are going to have. So with a half-inch sensor, you've got the Neo and the original Mini series, right? Everything up to before when the Mini 3 came out, right? So those are going to be cheaper. They're not going to have the option for a controller with a screen, except the Neo. The Neo can fly with the RC2, but that's going to be your lower end of the spectrum, right? Then from there you have the Mini 3, which as of the making of this video right now, it is out of stock on DJI's website, but it is still available on online retailers. You can get a brand new Mini 3. The Mini 3 Pro, I bought this on Adorama, and you guys would be shocked if I told you what I paid for this. I bought this as a used or a pre-owned drone, renewed drone from Adorama, and it's the Mini 3 Pro. This is the one that has the obstacle avoidance sensors front, back, and bottom. And I bought the Fly More combo, and really, really, really incredible deal. I mean, it did come with the RC, DJI RC with the screen, so I got this for a really killer price. I'll just say I got it for significantly less than I bought this one for. So check out Adorama. So you've got Neo, Mini 4K series, you've got the Mini 3, you've got the Mini 3 Pro if you can find one. Excellent. Then you've got the Flip. Sits right there, and then from there you've got the Mini 4 Pro. So 250 grams or less, that's your lineup, and that's kind of how they plan out. This is kind of the next two most expensive, right? You've got this one and you've got the Mini 4 Pro. If you can afford the Mini 4 Pro, that's going to be the best that you can get. It's going to be, the best in the wind. It's an upgrade. It's a significant upgrade. Then from there, you've got the Flip. I think it's a great drone for where it sits price rise. And then obviously, if you can find a Mini 3 or Mini 3 Pro, those are some other options you can consider. This is after you leave the 1/2-inch sensor behind that the Neo and the Mini 4K series has. Now, let's say you're someone that would be okay with purchasing a refurbished drone and a drone that is over 250 grams. I'm going to give you guys two options right now that I think are priced very, very well. So when you think of the pricing of the Flip right now, there is a drone that's still available, which is the DJI Air 2S, which is right around the price range of this drone when you buy a Fly More combo. You can get them refurbished still in many of the online retailers like Adorama and some other ones for right around the same price of a brand new Flip. The difference is that drone is got a 1-inch sensor. It's got a 1-inch sensor. It's a significantly bigger drone. It's going to fly in significantly better in higher winds. Flight time is going to be about the same because the battery is rated for 31 minutes, just like the battery on the Flip is, just like the battery on the Mini 3, the Mini 3 Pro, the Flip, the Mini 4 Pro, and also the Air 2S that I'm speaking about, all kind of rated right around 31 minutes, or a little, I think the Mini 3 might be 34 minutes, but they're all rated right around 30 minutes, which means you're going to get about 25 minutes of flight time from them. Again, the Air 2S is a bigger drone, but still available at right around the same price as the Flip. So just something to consider. You could get a brand new Flip, or you could get an Air 2S, and the difference would be this one's under 249 grams. You don't have to register it. The Air 2S you would have to register, but much better drone in my opinion as far as when I compare the two. The 1-inch sensor, the fact that it shoots in 5.4K if you want, which I don't use a whole lot, but 4K 60, 4K 30, it's got zoom. I mean, it's just, got to look at that drone if you're in the market for a drone and you're okay with something over 249 grams and you're a budget conscious person. And then the other drone I would say is the Air 3 is still available right now. You can find it refurbished or renewed for right around the price that you would pay for a Mini 4K. For a Mini 4 Pro. So you've got the Mini 4 Pro, which is kind of the top of the line on the 250 gram or lower segment, and then you've got the Air 2S and the Air 3, which are options for above the 250 gram limit, and all of those are good choices. I just wanted to throw some options out there. If you're thinking about purchasing a drone, there's just a lot right now. You go from the Neo all the way up to the Air 3S, Air 3S, Air 3, Mini 4 Pro. I mean, it just gets so much, there's so much bandwidth now with options for drones. So I'm not sure if this video will further confuse people, but I wanted to go ahead and give my options or give my opinion and my thoughts on the Flip and where I think it sits. And really, to close this out, I'll just say, I think DJI is really doing some smart marketing right now. They've got a bunch of drones right now on a lineup to tailor to a lot of different consumers. So just be smart about what you're going to do. Think about what's important to you. What are you going to use? What are you not going to use? What's really, get down to the nitty gritty of what you really want in your drone. And there's so many choices right now that you can find the exact perfect piece of equipment for you. The last thing that I will say, guys, is I did have a negative experience with my Flip. Not this one, but I did buy a Flip originally from DJI. And it got held up in customs. So if you're buying directly from DJI and you live on the east coast of the United States, don't. It's going to get held up in customs, high chance of that. I actually bought a second one, which is this one here from Adorama, and I got it delivered overnight. I got it in a day, and I'm still waiting for the one that I bought from DJI. It's still in Kentucky right now at a customs office waiting to be cleared. I have since contacted DJI and I've spoken to them, and they've started the process of issuing me a refund and recalling that shipment. And the refund's already processing to my account, which I'm happy about. But don't make the same mistake. I was very excited. I ordered mine on launch day, about 22 minutes after it launched, and it was a big letdown when everyone was getting their drones, and unfortunately me on the East Coast here, it got held up in customs. So don't make that mistake. If you can buy it from an online retailer that's local or that's domestic in the US, then do that. Otherwise you may be waiting, especially if you live on the East Coast of the US. So that's all I got for you guys today. I hope this helps somebody. If you have any questions, love to help people, so leave them down below. I'm also going to post this on my Facebook group and a couple other groups that I belong to, so leave me a comment on there. Totally willing to help anybody that needs it at any time. So as I sign out at the end of all my videos, happy flying, gang.